Archbishop and Primate of the Anglican Church in North America.
yes, there is sharing of altars, and we're not having to leave the jurisdiction. Now that one is the bit that we are sensitively working through, because what I'm not prepared to have is people, being poached. Yeah, I just need to be, speak with my authority on the international college of say I'm not prepared for that to happen. We are building the kingdom here, and there's no egos, there's no logos, the gospel goes. But by the same token, God has given us a charism, and I'm just conscious that to your left, our Father is here. And the bit that I will say in this room, ACNA doesn't exist without CEC. It was Archbishop Chuck that loaned the network his university building, so Archbishop Bob Duncan could actually work out what they were going to do when those Orthodox priests and bishops were defrocked by the Episcopal Church, and Nigeria stepped in, and it's really interesting. We've got brothers from Nigeria here, from the Anglican, the Church of England, from the Anglican Communion jurisdiction of Nigeria, and Archbishop Chuck. The two together allowed ACNA to be formed. So, we are working this through, but I'm not prepared to have people poached. And am I okay saying that? I don't think that that's right. So we're having to work things, through, and we're just doing that graciously. And I just don't want to be, disrupting the constructive conversations, that we're actually having at the moment. But I hope that. So the idea is you still remain CEC priest. It's a sharing of altars, it's a sharing of resources, and we can therefore keep our respective charisms.
So now we've talked about the global evangelical picture with the WEA. Now we'll move to GAFCON. So through a series of events that's really too long to go into a description here, the government of India invited our Bishop Primus to form an Anglican Bishops' Council. Because they have an Orthodox Bishop Council, they have a Catholic Bishops' Council, they do not have an Anglican Bishops' Council. And those three churches are recognized in India. And so Bishop John called right away and said, do we go to the Church of England, or do we go to GAFCON to gather our covering? We prayed and we agreed that it was GAFCON that should be the covering, not the Church of England, for all the reasons we all discussed. And so I spoke with Bishop Foley. They put, what are the titles? Bishop Ray Sutton hang on. Oh, wait, this is the wrong letter. Hold on. This is the wrong letter. Wrong letter, folks. 1 second. Speak to the bishops that we met with. There we go.
So Archbishop
Glenn Davis, thank you. I need to play that video, actually.
And Bill Atwood as ambassador at the time, and then David O'Grosiana, who was the former primate of the Archdiocese of Sydney. Yeah.
Right. So they met with Canon Phil and I, because he's our ecumenical officer. We worked through all the process of what we had been asked to do. They did a quick survey of all of the GAFCON primates. And the GAFCON primate said, look, if you'll take any valid Anglican bishop in India, whether he's CEC or whether he's Church of North India, whatever, a valid Anglican bishop, if you will accept them in the Anglican Bishops' Council, and if you will require that they sign the Jerusalem Declaration, so there's an Orthodox standard there, and there's transparency on leadership and financial resources, so we can't have accusations of misappropriation. If you'll accept anyone like that, we'll stand with you. And so we got this letter from GAFCON Chairman Foley Beach, and it just says, to His Excellency Bishop Primus, a Metropolitan of the CEC Church, and the recently appointed chair of the GAFCON Anglican Bishops' Council of India, Archbishop Dr. John Satya Kumar. I have the pleasure to confirm that based on the such and such date report and recommendations, the GAFCON primates, and they're all listed below, recognize the establishment of the Anglican Bishops' Council to represent the interests of the Anglican churches to the Indian government under the leadership of Archbishop John, including any or all bishops who are willing to commit to the affirmations in the Constitution of the Anglican Bishops' Council. These primates represent over 70 million of the 90 million Anglicans throughout the world. So that's major. Now, it would be unwise of me to stand here and speculate how that's all going to progress and at what stage. But I believe it makes a lot of sense that as we finalize the formation of this, and this, we've been talking about this even last night, the Indian bishops, of what we've got to do to strengthen this so we can have a position and a voice with the Indian government and pull in any valid Anglican bishop who wants to participate. But what comes from that is a national organization in India that is representing the leadership of all of the Anglican churches in India, and so makes a natural candidate as a GAFCON province of India. And so that would and could and probably would end up being the pathway by which the CEC becomes a organizational part of GAFCON. Now, every one of you here can go to the GAFCON website, sign the Jerusalem Declaration, and be an individual part of GAFCON. But we don't want to just be a group of individuals. We want to be a part of participating on the global stage to help define and drive the direction of orthodoxy, Christian unity, and the body of Christ working together as one. That's where I think our call is. So, yes, sir.
These processes, I've been ecumenical officer now for a number of years and have developed, links within the communion. So in November, I'll be having dinner with the Archbishop of Canterbury at Lambeth. And these processes take time. Archbishop John is learning this. I almost thought he was a Marine because he was more anxious for things to move forward than even Archbishop Robert. We have to be careful of not making premature claims. We need to make sure that any announcements are not premature. When GAFCON puts the announcement out there, that's okay. That's when we can give you a heads up that it's happening. But these relationships are incredibly sensitive, and this is the Anglican Communion. It's like turning ground. It takes a long time, So, for instance, to get recognition in the United Kingdom with the Order of St Leonard, CEC Order of St Leonard, these are not fast processes. Please, again, add caution. Don't jeopardise the work that's going on behind the scenes by saying, "Oh, we are now this," or "This is happening." Just please trust us. That you can see the evidence in front of you. We are working this through at the right rate, or as fast as it can be possibly, worked through. And we are not the only agenda that GAFCON has. We are one of many, many, many agendas, given the magnitude of things that are happening within the Anglican Communion, at the moment. So please, if I can stress that, don't jeopardise and make my life even harder by, it's my personal plea, by making declarations that we haven't publicly released to you.
But I would like to say anything you can do to make his life harder beyond that, feel free. So I'm going to play a video. This was actually when Ken and Phil and I were in Rwanda with Archbishop John, as part of GAFCON's update of what they were doing in all of their various regions, they began to do an update on India. And this was how they opened their up, not with our logo. You're going to see our logo pop up. That's just us being fancy. But when you start to see Bishop Glenn Davies talking, that's how they opened up with India. So we can just, the key thing was that at the GAFCON conference, they were very clear about establishing this council and having, and its recognition. And so that was very worthwhile. I have one other video to play, and this ties in directly with the UK. Let's see if this will come up.
Good morning from England. This is David Carr.
No, it will not. So I'm going to just pull the video up directly. We have bishops that wanted to be here with us and could not. Bishop David Carr's health does not allow him to come, so he sent a greeting. Is Father Joel here yet? No. Okay, so Father Joel is coming from the western part of Canada. Bishop Daniel Zapula has significant health issues with his daughter that are preventing him from coming. So, but I do have a video greeting from Archbishop David Carr, so I do want to share that.
Good morning from England. This is David Carr, Order of St. Leonard, welcoming Archbishop Roberts and the rest of the delegates of the Synod. I pray that you have a great and wonderful time. Karen Philpott on my behalf, miss seeing you in person, but believe that God will do a great and wonderful thing in these coming days. May you be blessed beyond all measure. The Lord be with you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. Amen.
Amen. So we have a strong contingent from around the world, and these numbers are at least a year and a half old. We've got to work to get more current numbers, but if you visited our website recently, you see that right now globally we've got it's more than 2.1 million adherents right now, some 10,700 churches, the vast majority of which are in India, 91 bishops, 10,000 some odd clergy and 1,700 missionaries around the world. Because we are structured the way we are in our province, and because we've got the right tax exemption and we can process humanitarian aid as a church, also want to share a real exciting milestone. And that is, since the fall of Afghanistan, now some 2 years ago, the CEEC has been able to receive, process, and distribute in the form of support for shelter, which in some cases is safe houses, which in some cases is apartments in Pakistan, food, medical support, including surgeries, births. I don't even know how to describe torture repair, but we're dealing with the Taliban. We have successfully moved close to 200 people out of Afghanistan into other nations. And we're currently working with the Tim Tebow Foundation and a couple of other groups to move 75 people, some of which are still in Afghanistan and some are in Pakistan, to a third-party nation, which I won't identify right now, that has agreed to take them. And so we have processed as humanitarian aid through the church without charging any money to do it. We've covered the overhead, and in many cases, because of your faithful tithing, been able to pay bank fees of it, over $1 million in aid. We're a small group, but that's what we're able to do. So I just really want to encourage you, the impact that we're having is not typically visible and above board. It's typically behind the scenes and under the covers, but we are having an impact. And I'll just tell you one story, maybe more than one, but I will tell you at least one. There was a family in Afghanistan that had been identified by the Taliban as being connected with US government operations there. The father and the mother were executed. They were dragged out of their house into the street and executed in the street in front of their house, in front of their 3 children. So now the 23-year-old daughter was now the head of the family. Her 14-year-old sister and her 9-year-old brother are now orphans. We got told about it. We were able to help and work in facilitating getting them out of the hands of the Taliban and into Pakistan, where they had somebody who had the ability to support them for a month. That month came and went. They weren't able to get moved. Because of your faithfulness in tithes and offerings, we were able to pick up the support for those 3 orphans. We carried them for almost 14 months. Rent, electricity, food, clothes, medical care. And they were finally extracted to Spain from the group that had been working with them but didn't have the money to do the ongoing support. Then the contact that I've been working with for this particular family said, I need your mailing address, please. I have something I want to send you. And I'm like, I knew it wasn't money because that battle we'd already had. So I gave it to her. And a few weeks later, I got a small jar. If you visit my office when I have an office, you'll see it. It's about this big, small glass jar. And in it were 4 small handwritten notes. One from the older sister, one from the younger sister, one from the 9-year-old boy, and one from the shepherd who had kept them and got them to Spain. 3 weeks ago, one of the folks that we've got in Pakistan right now, the Air Force Lieutenant Colonel who'd been really communicating with him, he said, Bishop, he said, I really think he's serious about coming to Christ, and I don't know how to do that. So I got on Signal with this guy, and his question was, I've read in the Quran and I've read in the Bible, murderers can't go to heaven. And I was a sniper, and I worked for the Taliban, and I worked for the secret police. So there's nothing I could do. I got to tell him about the great exchange, that Jesus' blood covers his sin completely and washes it away. And he gets the righteousness of Jesus. And so in the eyes of God, he's not a murderer anymore. And he gave his life to Christ. And you know what? I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to. This is a plug for what we're doing later this afternoon. So he came to Christ. I said, I want to send you a link to a video. He said, I can't take the video yet because I'm moving houses and I'd have to put the video link on my phone. The Taliban are in Pakistan. Be a Muslim getting caught with your phone with Jesus stuff on it, and you get to meet Jesus personally. So after he had moved, he said, okay, I start learning Bible. You can send me the links. I have Wi-Fi now. So I sent him the Jesus film. I sent him a link to Magdalena. And I sent him a couple of other things. And I said, hey, here's 2 films in Dari, because that's his heart language. He watched them. If you look at the timestamps, about an hour and a half after I sent him the Jesus film link, he said, really nice movie. The most great parts, he prayed for the crazy woman. He prayed for the boy that was dead and he's alive again. He prayed for the bleeding woman. Hey, here's some questions. Why didn't God save Jesus from beating the soldiers and hanging on the tree? Jesus, the Son of God, how is this possible? Holy Mary was a virgin. Did Jesus marry someone or not? I heard in Islam he's alive, and he'll come on the sky and come back one day. And I need somebody who speaks Dari that can speak to his heart language to be answering questions like this, and I'm looking for them. Yasser's not helping. So we're going to have somebody from the Jesus film here this weekend. You didn't get them yet. But the Jesus film is donating 50 tablets to us, preloaded with Jesus film and Magdalena and Jesus for Children and Bible stories and all sorts of things in multiple languages. Pastor Jimmy got them. He said he's crying as he's loading the boxes into his storage unit. They're marked for Democratic Republic of the Congo. They're in French. They're marked for South Sudan. They're marked for Pakistan. They're marked for India. These are tools to take into places where there is no electricity. They're giving us solar panels to put out in the daytime to charge the tablets and the speaker systems that are coming with them, so they can gather around a tree or in a hut with 10, 12, 14 people, and they can do the Jesus film, and they can do discipleship, and they can do evangelism. Our goal, our call is to get out of our churches and our houses and to get into the places where there's people who need to hear the gospel and tell them. And that's part of what we're doing. So,
Bishop,
yes, I was just going to pull you in and have you.
Before you tell me what I need to do, the people were blank when we actually said $1 million. I actually, who thinks that's really good? Yeah, exactly. I was just, everyone was kind of silent. I didn't know whether that was kind of like shock or whether that was kind of like, oh, that wasn't very much. Because actually, please tithe to my church if you don't think that's very much. Just a shameless plug there. But, we are affecting circumstances beyond our means in a profound way. And that speaks one word, favour.
In 2021, we processed $333,000. In 2022, we processed 351. So far this year, 399. We are on track to do over $500,000 just this year. The total is $1,084,179. And if you look at this list of people, very, very few of them are coming from the CEC. They're all people who are trusting that we're going to handle their finances properly. Because most of the other groups that are doing it saying, yes, of course, we will take the $1,200 you need to send to John in West Undershire, wherever, because the Taliban will only take 10%, and we will send him the rest. We haven't taken 10%. We've been paying the bank fee. Some of these folks wire $1,000 in, $45 here, $45 there, $45 here. Sometimes it's because of different things, the fees are higher, but we just lost that. I'm hesitant to say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. If you are not faithfully tithing, you're limiting yourself. Because I don't need you to give your money to the communion because I need it, or John needs it, or wants it, or these people need it. You need to be giving it to put yourself in the position of the favor of God. Because God, you can start in Genesis and work your way all the way through to the end of the book of Revelation. And I've done it, and I can only find one time where God says, go ahead and test me on this one. He says, you bring the full tithe in, and you see if I don't pour out a blessing so big you can't contain it. That's what I want in your lives. That's what I want in your ministries. I know there are people sitting in this room who have long ago left behind the 10%. They're giving much, much more than that. I'm pointing back to the spreadsheet. Trust God enough to be faithful with what you understand and what you hold in your hand, and then watch what he does. You're going to be amazed. So it's 3:15. It's 3:19. We're gonna. That was the bishop's forum, I guess. I wanted to have a word on formation in the bishop's forum. I know we're talking about formation later this afternoon, but just as it relates to our vision, if you have just a minute.
So, I'll talk about the CMJ bit as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the other hats that I wear is as a trustee of CMJ. Has anybody heard of CMJ? So CMJ is the church's ministry amongst Jewish people. And so 3 weeks ago, I was in Israel and had the privilege of celebrating Holy Communion at Christ Church, which is although it's in the Diocese of Jerusalem, it's a CMJ church. And CMJ is a Church of England Mission Society. And one of the things that's gradually been cropping up, and Father Dominic, who's, I think, has been a partial rapture. It's a dodgy theology, I know, but he certainly has disappeared out of that chair. Father Dominic, along with myself, lead the Commission on Ordained Ministry for the CEC. And what we've been looking at is formation track and how we form not just clergy, but laity as well, lay readers as well. And so my master's is in early church, and how we actually grew the church. And as I've been looking at this over the period of the last 6-7 years now, the realization that there's been to me, and forgive me for those educators that are in the building, is our current seminary model doesn't work. You know, the way that we grew the church in those early days was organically in houses. They continue steadfastly in the apostle doctrine, breaking of bread, fellowship of prayers. The breaking of bread is not Holy Communion, by the way. It's literally sitting round a table and eating. And so the way that we plant churches is organic. And so the early church was a number of house churches that were then headed up by a presbyter, and those presbyters, when there was enough of them, were elevated as overseers, episcopi, as bishops. And so the organic program of how we train people happens on the ground. And so we have been looking at a formation track, and we have a great deal of it put together already, but it's based on the Hebraic roots of our faith. And when I come to do a demonstration of Eucharist a little bit later, I'll touch on this. But you know, we need to maybe get back to where Jesus was at Passover and how Jesus discipled people and what that looks like. So the formation track that we're working on means that a person can plant a church with a mentor, with a deacon or a priest alongside them, and they can do their formation on the job, but also their theological